Oh, hey.
Hey, thanks for meeting me here on such short notice. This place isn't bugged, is it?
Bugged? Wait, Jamie, what's going on?
It's just, you're my only lawyer friend, and I need your professional opinion. Do you see that brand new Hyundai Tucson out there?
Yeah?
That's all I paid for it.
I think I need to get back to you on that.
Do you know what you want?
Yeah, I do now.
Deal's so right, it almost feels wrong. Get the car or SUV you've always wanted, plus America's best warranty at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. The guilt is real, but so is the savings.
Listen, I don't want to get in your business, but if that's all she paid for it, I'll have what she's having.
It's a great day for a new Hyundai at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event going on now. Get 0% APR for 60 months, plus 0 payments for 90 days on all Hyundai Palisade, Santa Fe, and Santa Fe hybrid models. And check out our other great deals at your Hyundai dealer today. Offer ends September 2nd. Call 562-314-4603 for details.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Hour 2, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, working towards the weekend. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Chris Blair back in his normal Thursday slot, coming up 15 minutes from right now. First Brian Kelly show of the year coming your way from TJ Ribs on Acadian tonight. Chris will preview that. We'll talk a little football with him, and then we will spend the 2:30 segment of the show today talking to Sonny Shipp. We wanted to catch up with Sonny yesterday, weren't able to, but we'll talk to Sonny coming up in 30 minutes about LSU's quarterback recruiting for 2027. That includes Elijah Haven here in Baton Rouge, Colton Nussmeier over in Texas, certainly Peyton Houston at Evangel. So we'll talk about all that with Sonny coming up in 30 minutes. Kellen Moore of the New Orleans Saints met with the media just moments ago to give them some updates as LSU. I do that twice a show. As the Saints get ready for their preseason finale against the Denver Broncos Saturday in the Dome. And he gave some updates. I want to get the first one, which is an injury update out there, and then I want to talk about some of the other things he had to say. But Taliesin Fuaga had, quote-unquote, a knee thing at the end of practice yesterday. He didn't practice today. So apparently it's not serious. You've still got more than 2 weeks until you open the season. So I'm not concerned about that at all. But he wasn't at practice today, and that was something that he wanted to clear up. So with that, I want to change the focus of the conversation to Saturday's game. And Kellen Moore says that Spencer Rattler's going to start. More on that in a second. But he also added that a lot of starters are going to play. I think that is absolutely and unequivocally the right move. If you're listening terrestrially on the radio right now live, you just heard ESPN Sports Center, and they said that, like, Josh Allen hadn't played a snap the entire preseason. And I think that's fine, too. The Saints aren't in the spot with Josh Allen and the Bills. That's pretty evident to everyone here, right? But they need to get reps. So as I look at this offense, I think Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck should take every rep in this game on Saturday. All of them. I think any series that Jake Haener takes is a waste of a series for the Saints organization. I think that sounds harsh. I think that sounds disrespectful to Haener, but I mean it. Like, I don't need to see him out there in the preseason. You have a quarterback situation you've got to try to nail down, and to sit them on the sidelines so that Jake Haener can put the rugby ball down and go out there and pilot a team doesn't help the Saints organization. It just doesn't. So those two guys should play, and my hope is that they will. When I look at the Saints offensively beyond quarterback, I have no issue if Chris Olave sits. I have no issue if Rashid Shaheed sits. I have no issue if Eric McCoy sits. I have no issue if Alvin Kamara sits. And now, based on yesterday's tweaked knee, I have no issue if Taliesin Fuaga sits. I don't need him playing through pain in a preseason game. If he's healthy, I want him to play. But if he's got an issue, sit. But everybody else needs to be out there. Kelvin Banks needs to play. Whatever's going on at left guard needs to play. Radens, Penning, whatever, I need to see him. Cesar Ruiz, yeah, you better be playing. I want to see the running backs. Wide receiver, we'll see what you can do. But the Saints need to put everybody else out there that they can offensively. I don't need to see DeMario Davis. I don't need to see Devin Gottschall. I don't need Cam Jordan to play. Even Chase Young's fine. There are some guys I don't need to see. I'm not suggesting the Saints need to go out there and play their starters for 3 quarters in a preseason game. Don't misunderstand. But when it comes to the offense, when it comes to the young players, yes, play them. Because here's my deal, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, but now it rings a little bit more true as you're only 2 weeks out from the first game, and you're playing in a situation where most teams are sitting the majority of their starters. I understand that injuries are very bad and that they're preventable if you can stay off the field, and I understand everything that goes into it. But the Saints have to get better. And you cannot get better in street clothes, in a headset, and a clipboard. And I'm not worried if a Saints player sprains his ankle or separates his shoulder trying to get better at this point in the season, because I don't care if a Saints player misses 8 games this year. That is not my concern. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it's easy for me to sit here and talk about injuries that aren't mine. That's not the way I'm framing it. I'm suggesting that the risk and reward of trying to get reps and get better is worth it to me. It's not worth it for Josh Allen. It's not worth it for Cam Jordan. It's not worth it for Alvin Kamara. But it's worth it for these young offensive linemen, these young defensive linemen, certainly these young defensive backs, the young linebackers that have played so well. Even if they're going to start, I need to see them play. So I think that Kellen Moore is handling this thing really well. I think he's let both quarterbacks start a game with the ones, had the receivers in the second game, not the first game. I get it, but the offensive line, you've given them reasonable shares of the reps. Jay Kaner hasn't played a ton, and now you're going back to Rattler in this spot, and let's talk about that. I'm okay with it. I personally think, just in terms of psyche, decision-making, locker room pressures, all those things, I think it's easier to go from Rattler to Shuck midseason than it is to go from Shuck to Rattler. I think that's conventional wisdom. So to name Rattler the starter for this preseason game, while they haven't done it for the week 1 game, I think makes a lot of sense. I don't think that buries Tyler Shuck. I don't think that discourages Tyler Shuck. I don't think that creates any division in the locker room. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think either of them has significantly outperformed the other. So, I'm good with it. And you pull for Spencer Rattler. You hope he goes out there and plays well. I don't think it's reasonable to get both quarterbacks significant time with the first team offense. I think at that point, you may be overextending yourself. You can't get Rattler 2 quarters and Shuck a quarter with the first team offense. You're going to probably sit them at that point. But I think a half for Rattler to go out there and play, and then maybe Shuck goes out there with the second team, but you're playing against second and third team guys from the Broncos. Maybe it's a little bit more conducive learning environment. The third preseason game, which is now taking the place of the fourth preseason game, is the one where you're going to see the fewest starters out there on the field, especially in the second half. So I'm good with this. I would have been fine if Shuck would have started the game as well. I think that would have been an indication that Shuck would be the starter. I have suggested now for a week and a half, that I thought Rattler would be the starter on opening day. I still feel that way, and I'm okay with that. I believe that the higher ceiling now lies with Shuck, but I think starting Rattler in the first 5-6 games is completely fine if that's what they decide to do. But what you can control right now is what you do with your personnel in this preseason setting. And I think getting more starting offensive linemen out there is good. I think getting your quarterbacks out there for a lot of reps is good. I don't need the key skill guys out there at this point because you've got other options there who are trying to make the team. But I want to see those guys play. And I want to see the first half be a lot of starters. And I think you're going to see that. And again, I think Kellen Moore has run this thing very, very well in his first camp as a head coach with this quarterback situation and this roster situation, which is completely different than the places he's come from. He's come from Dak Prescott being surefire dude, shooting for the playoffs. He's come from Justin Herbert being the surefire dude, trying to make the playoffs. He's come from Jalen Hurts being the surefire dude, winning the Super Bowl. This is a different world for Kellen Moore, and I think he's navigating it very, very well. Now, the most important thing is getting a product on the field that improves over the course of the 17 games, and that remains to be seen. But what we know about him right now, controlling the controllables in the preseason, I have no issue with the way that he's handled the practice schedule, the preseason rotations, the quarterback battle, all that's gone into it. I think he's done a really nice job, and we'll see what Saturday yields in the Dome with the Saints and the Broncos in the final preseason game before 2 weeks, and then you start things for real against the Cardinals. All right, that's a kickstart to hour number 2 here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Restart our Thursday interviews with Chris Blair of the LSU Sports Radio Network. Tonight, we'll have the first edition of the Brian Kelly Show of 2025. We'll preview it. Talks of football. Chris Blair, next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms, Premium Angus Beef. Football is on the way. Bunch of checks that you've checked off that checks list over the last month or so. Another one tonight as the Brian Kelly Show cranks back up on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Chris Blair will be there at TJ Ribs for it. Gave him the summer off. Last time we talked to him was in Omaha, but it's now time for some football. It's time for the Coach's Show, and it's time for Chris to return to his Thursday slot. He does so now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Did you have a good summer, sir?
I did. I really did. I mean, it really hit me as you were talking. I mean, it seems like yesterday we were having a blast up there in Omaha, Nebraska, and here we are getting ready to go to that other shape ball in football. And I studied in psychology class in college. They talked about the older you get, the faster time moves, and boy, I'm a believer now.
Look, you are going to have to learn a lot of different names here for the old spotter sheet. That's the nature of the beast with college sports these days in the transfer portal. Have you studied up? Have you got your depth chart in front of you?
Yeah, actually been working on it for I guess a couple of weeks for that very reason. And I know you guys talk about it every day. One of the reasons I'm very optimistic and super excited about seeing this team come August 30th and beyond is, I think the problems or the deficiencies, I won't say problems, but deficiencies I think were clearly addressed. And, if you know anything about anything in life, you can't change anything or make anything better till you identify those issues. And I think, at least up until this point, I thought that Coach Kelly, his staff, the entire football operation, went out and addressed those. And part of that, big part of that, obviously, was the transfer portal haul, considered to be the top in the country. And as you mentioned, there's going to be a number of game one playmakers that we're going to be seeing and learning about for the first time. But that's a good thing. I mean, I just think, one of the things that excites me, Hunt, is when you start breaking down the position groups and you start looking at the names that we are familiar with, guys that are in their second year or maybe even third year, in some cases fourth year in the program. And then you take a look at what they backfield with experience out of the P4, guys who have big-time college football experience somewhere else that had really good seasons, either last year or the year before. I think that's why I'm optimistic. I mean, you can start making a case, on paper anyway, for how good these different groups should be, whether you want to start with the defensive front and how I think they're going to be more improved based on the personnel, especially at the defensive end, the linebackers with the returners that have great game experience and great talent, as well as some of the younger guys in the secondary that were, baptized by fire, along with some of the hauls there out of the transfer portal. So again, I try to be carefully optimistic because a lot of things have to happen in a given football season, and with a schedule like LSU's, again, you start out with very small margin of error. But I can see where there's excitement for this team. Now, ultimately, they got to go out when boot meets ball and make it happen. But I like the fact that all of those issues and all of the needs, I feel, were pretty well addressed by this staff. And, when you talk to Coach Kelly, I've run into him a couple times at some events this summer. And, I understand why he's very optimistic about the talent that they have assembled this year.
Look, I have not been afraid to go out on a limb the last 2 years and say I'm a little concerned about the way I'm watching the defense every day in camp, and I have not been afraid at all to go out on a limb this year and go, I think the defense is going to be really, really good. And a lot of folks that have watched LSU for a long time around here have seen a lot of really good defenses. I think this is going to be one of them. Is there a level, as you kind of went through it there, but is there a level that you're most excited about watching in that first game against Clemson?
Yeah, I think I talked to you a lot last year during the season about, yes, I know the secondary has not been up to the standard that LSU has been accustomed to. And, yes, there were multiple problems with dual threat running quarterbacks that were widely on display last year. But I was always a fan of Blake Baker. I liked it when he was here on the previous staff. I was impressed with what he did at Missouri in his short time. And I just think his philosophy of against these high-powered offenses that the SEC has in bulk, instead of being a reactive defense, I think your best bet is being a proactive, aggressive defense. And that's the kind of style that I think Coach Baker brings. And now I think he's got, whether you talk about the addition of Pybert on the edge or Patrick Payton, who I'm really looking forward to seeing, especially if he's back to full health. And Kevin Peoples, our defensive end coach, for my money, is the best in the country. I like what I see out of this defense. Now, I know the story always is, and this never changes. Wait a minute, is there a problem with our offense? I don't think there's a problem with the offense during fall camp. I mean, you can go down this list of guys that we're going to be calling on Saturdays. I don't think LSU offensively, there's certainly some improvements starting with the running game. But I think that's to me is the better sign, that this defense is not just being mauled over practice after practice, scrimmage after scrimmage. That to me is another reason why you got to be pretty excited about the defense. I thought as the season went on, we saw some flashes of better than the 23 season. But I think in 25, it's got to be markedly better. And I know that's what they're working on, and I'm excited to see what it looks like against a really good quarterback, good group of receivers. I don't know about Clemson's running back situation. They're having some issues there with injury. But yeah, I think that's a great sign. When people tell me, look, I heard the scrimmage was all defense, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, the offense has a lot of proven commodities on it. There's no question. Garrett Nussmeier is one of those. I push back on the narrative, but I'll toss it to you. You were on the mic for Joe year 1 to year 2, as well as Jaden year 1 to year 2. What are your expectations for Nussmeier in year 2?
Yeah, I have no reason not to think he'll make a major step forward. And that's not – some of that has to do with the development we saw for Joe and obviously Jaden. But I don't think you can cookie cutter that. I mean, there's all kinds of variables that impact that. But Garrett Nussmeier knows what it looks like. The fact that his father played in the NFL and his father has worked, as a quarterback's coach, and that Garrett was willing to buy into being a developing product as he came through the program here, which is, we joke all the time, that's a college football unicorn, Garrett Nussmeier. Yeah. And so I think for all of those reasons, you could not help but think if all things are even, yes, I think there's a potential for him to take a major step forward. The good news is we all know he's never lacked of confidence. He didn't lack confidence the first day he stepped on campus. What I think now is he understands from last year this is his team. He's got to make those right decisions. Can he still make those throws in tight windows? Absolutely. Can he make all the throws that you're going to need to make to be successful? Absolutely. His decision-making, I think, is what I think that will be why we see a major difference and a major uptick in his play. And as you said, you look who's gathered around him, especially on the outside. Hunt, you can make an argument. There are 8 receivers, including our hybrid tight end, Trey'Dez Green, that would be playing multiple mini snaps for a number of not just Power 4 teams, SEC teams. Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton Jr., the addition of Nick Anderson, Barryon Brown, Kyle Parker, Jelani Watt. Again, it's kind of an amazing the abundance of riches they have in that wide receiver room. I say all that because I think the passing game's going to be better. I think Garrett's going to be more judicious. I think you'll see his completion percentage go up. I expect that to be seen. And I expect the ability to stretch defenses and really make them prepare for everything. Because I think last year, as well as Garrett was and the receivers were and as many yards as they were able to add, they really didn't have the threat vertically. And goodness knows, with Hilton being successful, we saw what he did on the back end, even when he wasn't quite 100% last year. Nick Anderson, that's kind of his bread and butter. Barryon Brown is a guy that can do that as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. I just think it comes down to what I talked to Coach Kelly about a couple of weeks ago, is being able to run the ball when we want to run the football and be successful. To me, Garrett now has an expanded route tree for his passing game, and if you're able to get some really good running where you can run the ball when you want to on first down and make it second and short and third and short, I think that just puts a lot of pressure on any defense, and you're going to see some pretty good ones starting week 1.
Yeah, I mean, this time last year we weren't talking about Caden Durham, and then all of a sudden in Columbia, South Carolina, he kind of exploded. What do you expect from him in year 2?
Yeah, I hope he makes a major jump too, because that's another exciting piece. I mean, that South Carolina game, the freshman basically turned the game on its ear. I mean, 17-0 before you can look up, and it was like, you know, what are we going to do? We're not hitting the big pass play, and then boom, they make the call to give it to the freshman, and he has great field vision, which we saw on display all last season. He's got the extra burst of speed. Makes the right cuts, and is physical. I mean, I was just watching the other day that run against South Carolina. You know, credit the offensive line. They gave him a huge hole on that left side, and then he navigated his way and took a couple of hits and gave a couple of hits on his way to the end zone. So, again, I'm expecting, good things out of the running game. And talking to Coach Kelly again, he said, look, we had 2 of the best on the offensive line in Will Campbell and Emory Jones, and they've moved on. But they really feel like that the group as a whole may be even better than last year, just simply because everybody kind of has upped their game a little bit. And they're going to base everything off the center position, which I think they feel comfortable with. So, I mean, all indications are they should be able to run the ball. And I think what you've heard from Coach Kelly in multiple press conferences is there's been conversations. We are going to run the football, and we're going to be stubborn about it at times, even when maybe it doesn't come to us easy and early.
What's the Coke Zero situation in the studio? Do I need to bring some supplies next weekend, or we got that taken care of?
We'll have you all taken care of. In fact, I just went over to the big building earlier and made sure I told them that, I see a lot of empty racks in that fridge over there. So I think I'm putting the call out now. I think you'll be just fine.
I appreciate that very much. Tell everybody about the Brian Kelly show tonight, TJ Ribs.
Yeah, we brought back the preseason show. We had done without that a couple of years. It's always kind of a tough show for me. I mean, I use the word tough very loosely here, but you don't want to, talk about week 1 in the Clemson game when you got to do that next week. But there's been so much happening in a positive way with the football program, really going back as soon as the clock hit 000 in the Texas Bowl win over Baylor. And so first part of tonight's show, we're really going to talk about the foundation, the building, what's going on, the new additions. And I'm interested to see, Hunt. I think the question that I'm trying to get, and maybe fans will be interested in, I hope, is it a matter of they went about preparing for this year differently, or is it about the fact that in year 4, that's just the way things are? So I'm interested to hear, Coach Kelly talk about the changes, all for the good, and how this team really began being built in early January of 2025. And the other thing is going to talk a lot about the sense of urgency. If you go in that building, and frankly, since January, if you go in that building, it's pretty obvious that there is a huge game on August 30th. So it's going to be interesting to hear Coach talk about how they've approached the start of this season. We'll
talk about it next week, 7 o'clock tonight. TJ Ribs on Acadian, also on your affiliate on the LSU Sports Radio Network here in Baton Rouge, Eagle 98.1. Chris Blair will be there with Brian Kelly. He's with us every Thursday. Thanks, Chris.
You got it, boss.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. We'll come back, talk some LSU recruiting, specifically quarterbacks. Elijah Haven is his decision date coming up. Colton Nussmeier is his decision date coming up. Peyton Houston, LSU still recruiting him. We'll talk about all of it with Sonny Shipp next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters
Say recruiting never sleeps. Never stop recruiting. Certainly LSU staff does not stop recruiting, although they have not recruited quarterbacks at a very high rate in terms of landing them and getting them on campus the last couple of years. None in this true freshman class and none committed in the class that will ultimately ink in December. But the following class, LSU's got a lot of ties to the quarterback position. To talk about all of it, let's bring in Sonny Shipp, 24/7 Sports, good enough to give us a little time on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sonny, how we doing?
Doing good, brother. How about you?
Doing quite well. Let's talk about the three quarterbacks that LSU has significant ties to and whether or not we could be reaching commitment status with any of them. It's a rare deal where you got two guys in state, and Peyton Houston at Evangel and Elijah Haven at Dunham, who were in the top 5, top 8, depending on where you look in the country. And then you've got your starting quarterback's little brother, Colton Nussmeier, in Texas in the same class, who's in that category as well. How do you think LSU has handled that situation with those geographic and biological ties to their program?
Yeah, you always look for some kind of ties, some kind of connections that you can really lean on in recruiting. And in this cycle right here, Joe Sloan, wow, you get the number one quarterback and the number one prospect overall in the country in your own backyard, and Elijah Haven, and then you also have the little brother of a quarterback that you've had in your quarterback room ever since you've gotten to Baton Rouge. And so definitely an interesting, I guess you hate to say dilemma, but that's really what it is at the end of the day, because, you're not going to sign two of them. And at some point, you've got to differentiate the two. You're never going to come out, you're never going to say this is one and this is two. But somewhere in that football ops, there's a recruiting board that's got one name on top of the other. And, I think you're starting to see a little bit of separation between those three right there. And, it had to come at some point. And getting ready before their junior seasons get ready to start off. I think Peyton Houston, if you're handicapping where he's going to go right now, I think you got to look at USC as a big candidate for him. Remember Booby Feaster, the 4-star receiver in the 2026 class, who was really high on LSU. He and Feaster are really, really good friends. And so I would not be surprised at all if you don't see those two together out west at USC. And then that brings you to Haven and Nussmeier. And if you have the choice and you going after one over the other, who's your top dog?
Me? I don't know enough about it. I know I know Elijah is an incredible athlete, a great young man. I've met him here, great basketball player. And I know that Colton is Garrett's brother. He's left-handed, and he's probably a little bit better athlete. But I couldn't give you a reasonable take on who's better or not.
Yeah. I think you look, and granted, this is just me looking at it, okay? I think probably at the end of the day, you come down to comfort level, huh? Probably at the end of the day, a lot of your decisions that you make, it comes down to, are you comfortable with that decision? And I think that ultimately is probably what tips the scales in Colton Nussmeier's favor a little bit when it comes to LSU, is that you have that comfortability factor that Sloan has with the family. I mean, he knows everything, all the ins, all the outs, everything that there is to know about this kid, about this family, about the entire process, about how the process is going to play out from every angle. As far as, I think, what he's getting on the field, what you're getting off the field. But then I think you would be naive if you didn't look at this from an NIL standpoint too, and say, okay, how much bang are you going to get for your buck right here? Because in the day and age we are now, every kid's getting paid.
Yeah.
But when you put that 5-star by your name, that gives you you rolling up to the car lot right here with a lot of feeling pretty good about walking in that financial guy's office.
No doubt. So I've seen some industry folks start to make some predictions here and there. I'm curious if you think that, not to give a prediction, but for this part of the discussion, do you feel like commitments from those two guys are anywhere near imminent?
on one hand, when you look at it, LSU doesn't have any commits for 2027. I think they would absolutely love to, love to have your guy, love to be able to start building around him. I think if you look at, if you go with the notion that Florida is the team to beat now with Elijah Haven, which I do believe that as well. I do think that Billy Napier and the Gators, that they have created a little bit of separation there. And you got to give Napier and them credit, man. You're recruiting a guy like DJ Lagway, and now you're following it up a couple of years later with a guy like Elijah Haven. I don't think he gets enough credit for recruiting at that position at such a high level. But you got to really tip your hat to Billy right there. But, if you're me getting back to the original question that I posed at you that I was just waiting for you to call to just so I could spring that on you, by the way. But getting back to that original question, what I think really tips the scales, in Nussmeier's way, it just all boils down to Sloan having that comfortability that he has with the family, and grow it. You got a kid who grew up in a quarterback room, just like Garrett. You kind of, when you're checking all those boxes and stuff, you're checking most of those boxes without really even having to get in and do much homework on them. So I just think it, and I hate to use the word easy, but I think it's just an easier decision and an easier recruitment for him from that perspective.
What do you think of Colton Nussmeier as a prospect?
Oh, I think I like him. I like him that. I like that he's got, and hate to say this because I think Garrett just doesn't, for some reason, has just never wanted to show people that he had a little athleticism. I kind of compare him to Joe Burrow as far as being sneaky athletic. You think that the guy can't run, can't do anything. All of a sudden, 14 yards later, you're like, wow, okay, where did that come from? And I think Garrett really has a lot of that in him. When you look at, I know that when you look at quarterbacks that, lefties kind of get a bad rap. They get called, pushing the ball, don't really have arm strength and things like that. I think that, but I think all of the boxes and stuff that you look for as the quarterback goes, I think Colton has all of those.
It's interesting. We'll see if a commitment is coming at any time before his junior season starts up here in a couple of weeks. So one name I wanted to ask you about before I let you go here is Darius Gray, 5-star interior offensive lineman who will make his decision tomorrow. Do you have a thought on LSU and South Carolina there? It sounds like it's a 2-horse race.
Yeah, 2-horse race. And, 2-3 months ago, I think LSU was the team to beat, and they were probably the team to beat for about 3 months or so. And then once he hit that stretch of official visits, and he had a stretch to where I know he went to LSU, then he went to South Carolina. Before LSU, though, he had Ohio State, he had Tennessee, and then he went to Clemson. And it seems like on those official visits that once he got back home, that the distance factor really started to kind of become a bigger issue with him. Crazy thing about it is from talking to folks on all sides of his recruitment, we talk about NIL so much, but my understanding is that LSU has put together a really solid NIL package that is better than what South Carolina has proposed to him. And, so we see it's not always about the money with all kids, but right now I would definitely lean to South Carolina. And that's the bad thing is in this recruitment right here, you say, well, man, if you can just, if you can sweeten that pot with a better NIL deal, then you can go ahead and pull this over the finish line. It's like, well, not all times.
It's an interesting game. Recruiting never stops, and it's always different with every individual player. Sonny, we appreciate
it a little
bit.
By the way, brother, I got to give you a shout out on your schedule predictions that you rolled out last week. I saw that 20-16 on Clemson, and I said it was 2016, right? Isn't that what you?
I know it was low scoring. I don't remember what it is.
I think it was 2016, but I remember seeing that, and I was like, you know what? I said, I'm with Hunt. I think LSU's defense is going to pull this out. And so now that pulled me. It's like, okay, so now I got to go 11-1, or do I just pick another loss on the schedule? So
I stuck one in there with Oklahoma which ticked people off. But I appreciate it. If you want to go read that, you can at LouisianaSports.net.
I had to give you hell on that. I was like, how in the hell does he have them losing to Oklahoma to end the season?
Well, can't get them all right. We'll see. We'll crank it up here in 2 weeks. He's Sonny Shipp, 24/7 Sports. Thanks, man.
Have a good one, brother.
All your recruiting coverage, you can find it there. Sonny and the team at Go 24/7 do an awesome job. Glenn's with us every Tuesday, and when we need some recruiting talk, generally we hit up Sonny, and he's always accommodating to us and gives us a little bit of time there. So we'll see what happens with Gray tomorrow, but it sounds like most in the industry believe South Carolina's kind of surged ahead at the 11th hour. We'll give you an update on it on tomorrow's show. All right, let's take a time out, come back, and close it out next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Shout out to Sean Sagrera, the folks over at Sagrera Farms. I'll give you Sean's cell at the end of this read. So if you're looking for some prime Angus beef, I'll give you the number to call. It's Sean's cell phone. He can set you up. He came by my house a few weeks ago and dropped off some beef. We have gone through a good chunk of that. My wife said, best burgers I have ever made at home. She's not a big fan of the burgers I make at home. Generally speaking, I don't do a good job. Maybe it wasn't my job. Maybe it was just not very good beef. And we changed that and got some prime Angus beef. Put those babies on the grill, and they were the best I have made at home. I threw a big bone-in ribeye on the grill a couple weeks ago as well. You talk about awesome. All I did was salt and pepper that thing, threw it on that hot flame. As good a steak as you're going to make at home, as good a steak as you're going to find. It's some of the finest beef in the world, and it's just outside Baton Rouge. Top 1%. Only prime, aged 45 days, raised on grass, finished on grain. Every single cow on that farm is a 3-year journey to the finished product. Their consistency is remarkable. The quality is impeccable. If you're looking for steaks, ribeyes, fillets, strips, skirts, flanks, if you're looking for ground beef for your burgers, talking about Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Give Sean a call. 225 is the area code, obviously right here just outside of Baton Rouge. 719-1723. That's 719-1723. Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Only one more order of business to go here on this Thursday. That is, of course, take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Presented to you by Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer, crafted by America's oldest brewery. Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
If you're going to be on the grill, you might as well have a cold beer. If it's summertime, the weather's hot, you're on the grill, no better beer to have than Flight by Yingling. 2.6 carbs, 95 calories. All the awesome flavor you're looking for in a cold beer. It is Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer.
Okay, let's start it off with the Chicago Bulls announced today that they will retire former All-Star point guard Derrick Rose' #1 jersey in a ceremony against the Boston Celtics on January 24th, 2026. Rose was the youngest player to ever win the NBA MVP. Is this deserved? Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Derrick Rose was awesome.
Yeah.
Injuries, that's going to be a what could have been story. It really is. It's not as bad as some of the what could have beens.
Yeah.
Because he did have that MVP season. And really, if you look at the history of the Bulls, awful, Jordan, best ever, awful, except for Rose.
Yeah.
Like they have done nothing outside of that Rose-Noah team that was very good. They didn't quite make it to the degree that the Bulls fans thought they would. I was actually in Chicago for the NBA playoffs one year to go see the Cubs. And me and my buddy were going to some bars at night and watching the Bulls. It was a hoot to go watch those Bull games in the Chicago bars. They loved Derrick Rose. They loved Joakim Noah. Carlos Boozer was on a couple of those teams. Like they were good, just not quite good enough. But if Rose would have been healthy, you're talking about really an all-time great. When he was healthy, you're talking about a guy that got to the rim as effectively as probably any point guard in the history of the league.
Yeah.
Now, Russell Westbrook kind of became that guy, but Rose was the first one of that breed, and it just didn't work. The knees wouldn't hold up.
Yeah, man. It's sad how all that played out. So, Brock Bowers, Georgia Bulldog, debuts on the NFL Top 100 at 24 as the highest-ranked tight end in the league. George Kittle was ranked at 31, who was number 2. Is Bowers the best tight end in the league off his rookie year? Take it or leave it.
Take it.
Oh.
Now, Jordan, let me tell you about Brock Bowers.
Okay.
And his season last year.
Tell me.
He was on my fantasy squad.
Okay, so you're a Bowers guy.
He set the record for tight end receptions and yards, and I had Saquon Barkley last year.
Oh, you won it all?
I didn't even make the championship.
What?
I can't decide if that's really good fantasy football managing or not. I mean, I had those two guys. That's good.
You had studs.
I had nothing else.
Oh,
I think my quarterback was terrible. I don't remember. I decided not to keep Jalen Hurts. That hurts.
Oh, what is going on here?
It was poor, but I kept Brock Bowers for this year. I only paid like $5 in the auction for him. I get him for $10. We like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bowers is awesome. I got to find a way to surround my guy with some more talent.
You're lucky Taylor's not in here. He would have had an aneurysm here and you got rid of Jalen Hurts.
Probably so.
Yeah, he would have.
So.
Now, this is my favorite one. I've been waiting to get to this one. It's not even a take or leave it. Why is Hunt hiding the fact the Cubs are winning their current series against the Milwaukee Brewers? I mean, I guess I would say take it or leave it, but I want to know why.
We're watching right here.
Okay, so what's going on, Hunt? You're currently winning the series.
I'm happy. The last two nights have been very good. Last night's game was a freaking nail-biter. The Brewers loaded the bases in a one-run game. Line drive towards right field. We catch it on on the fly, and in the game, we've cut it to 6. But that's the problem is they were up by 9. So now, if we don't win today, we're down 7. We're still not going to be able to catch them. You have to win the game today. The difference in today is 5 or 7 with basically a month and a week to go. I'm excited. I'm happy the Cubs are playing better. They figured out Kyle Tucker's got a broken hand. We're figuring that stuff out. I'm in a good mood based on the last 3 days.
Okay,
However, they need to finish today. They're down 2-1 in the 6th. Pitching well, got to swing the bats. All I can tell you is this, Jordan.
Yes, please.
No, that's not true. That's not all I want. I want to win in the playoffs and go to the World Series and win it. But it is a great year when it's this point of the calendar. It's kind of the dog days. You're not to football yet, and the Cubs are giving me juice every night. I like that a lot. They're giving me juice right now. They got to get to the finish line here. But the key is they're way up in the wild card. They're very likely to make the playoffs. That's going to give me potentially some really good times in October. We'll see. But they got to find a way to win over the last 4 innings here because going down 7 games at the end of August is not going to be able to be overcome.
Well, yeah, I had to ask that because, the last couple of days, every time you came in about the Cubs, it was doom and gloom. Oh, man, the Cubs, all this.
They swept the doubleheader and then won a big one last night. They're playing good.
I had to do some research.
My hope is that the Brewers are finally becoming who they are.
Okay.
The Brewers kept winning 13 games in a row. Not like once, like routinely. They're not that good.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're crashing down to earth. Hopefully they have an atrocious postseason, which they usually do, but nobody notices because they're all pulling for the Packers by that point.
Yeah.
But the Cubs doing well over the last couple of days. We like that.
And that's it.
Let's take it or leave it here on this Thursday. That's it for our Thursday show. Lot of ground covered today. Saints trade, we talked about it. Saints naming a starting quarterback for the preseason finale, we talked about it. You can catch those at Hunt on Saints. We talked LSU with Chris Blair. Talked LSU with Sonny Shipp. Talked LSU special teams. You can find all that at Hunt on LSU. Matt's going to drive you home next on After Further Review. I'm out of here. Y'all have a safe and happy Thursday evening. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place for a Friday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.